Ever wondered how someone can look at you with pure love in their eyes one day, and the very next day treat you like they're their biggest enemy? This isn't random. This is the confusing, painful reality of dealing with a narcissist, especially when you're an empath. They pull you close with warmth, then suddenly push you away with coldness. One moment you feel chosen, the next you feel discarded. And you start asking yourself, what changed? Was it me? Did I do something wrong? But here's the truth. It was never about you. It's about the endless cycle inside of them. In this video, we're going to uncover why narcissists love an empath one minute, but hate them the next, and why their love you today, hate you tomorrow game is designed to keep you trapped. Stay with me until the end, because once you see the real reason behind their sudden shifts, you'll never look at their behavior the same way again. And if you've ever been caught in this emotional storm, share your experience in the comments. I want to hear your story. Don't forget to subscribe, because the truth you discover here could be the shield that saves your light. The narcissist's love is never steady, never safe, and never truly love at all. It is a roller coaster. One moment they lift you to the skies with adoration, and the very next they drop you into the deepest pit of rejection. If you are an empath, you know this feeling all too well. One day, they look at you as if you are the only light in their darkness, the only soul who truly understands them. They shower you with affection, praise, and a sense of importance that makes your heart feel alive. But then, without warning, their tone changes. The same eyes that once saw you as perfect now glare at you with irritation. The same voice that once spoke softly now spits criticism, cold silence, or even rage. And you are left questioning everything. What did you do wrong? Why did they change? And how could love turn into hate so fast? This is the emotional roller coaster of the narcissist, and it is a ride that leaves empaths dizzy, drained, and doubting themselves. At first, the highs of this roller coaster feel magical. Narcissists know how to love bomb, how to make you feel chosen, how to make you believe you are unlike anyone else. To an empath who craves deep connection and emotional truth, this feels like destiny. You think you finally met someone who sees you, values you, and cherishes your heart. But what you don't see is that this stage is not built on genuine love. It's built on illusion. The narcissist is mirroring you, reflecting your own goodness back to you so that you fall for a version of yourself in their eyes. That's why the connection feels so powerful, because you're being pulled in by your own light, projected back to you through their mask. Then, without reason, the drop comes. Suddenly, the very qualities they once praised in you become the ones they attack. Your kindness is called weakness. Your sensitivity becomes too much. Your compassion becomes a burden they use against you. One day you are the best thing that ever happened to them, and the next, you are not enough. Or worse, you are the problem. This shift doesn't make sense to the empathic heart because empaths love steadily. Empaths don't give affection one day and cruelty the next. So when the narcissist flips, the empath's natural reaction is to turn inward and blame themselves. You replay conversations in your mind, trying to find the moment where everything changed. You search for clues, explanations, and reasons why the love is turned cold. And this self-blame is exactly what keeps the cycle alive. The truth is, the roller coaster has nothing to do with you. The sudden shifts are not a reflection of your worth, your actions, or your love. They are a reflection of the instability within the narcissist. They need control. They need constant fuel. They need to keep you uncertain, because uncertainty binds you tighter than love ever could. If you never know which version of them you'll get, you remain on edge, always trying harder, always hoping for the good side to return.
This unpredictability is not an accident, it is a design. By alternating between love and hate, they condition you to stay attached, to crave their approval like a drug, and to ignore the damage being done to your soul. Narcissists don't choose their victims at random. They are drawn to specific kinds of people, and empaths stand at the very top of that list. To understand why, we must first look at what makes an empath different. An empath is not just someone who cares, it is someone who feels deeply, who can sense emotions beneath the surface, who carries a heart that naturally wants to heal, forgive, and love unconditionally. While many people notice pain in others and step back, empaths notice pain and step closer. They have an almost magnetic pull towards brokenness because their spirit longs to bring light where there is darkness. This is a beautiful gift, but in the presence of a narcissist, it becomes the very reason they are targeted. To the narcissist, the empath is irresistible. Imagine a starving person stumbling upon a feast. This is how the narcissist views the empath's endless compassion. They see someone who will listen, someone who will excuse their flaws, someone who will forgive even when the wounds are deep. Narcissists crave admiration and validation like oxygen, and empaths provide it without limit. An empath's ability to see the good in people, even when that good is buried under layers of manipulation and cruelty, makes them the perfect supply. Where others would set boundaries or walk away, the empath stays, hoping their love can heal what is broken. But here's the trap. The very qualities that make empaths strong also make them vulnerable. Their sensitivity allows them to feel the subtle shifts in the narcissist's moods. And instead of seeing these shifts as red flags, they interpret them as cries for help. When the narcissist lashes out, the empath tells themselves, they must be hurting. I need to be patient. When the narcissist withdraws, the empath thinks, they just need more love. I can bring them back. And when the narcissist suddenly flips from affection to cruelty, the empath believes, if I just hold on, the good side will return. This pattern locks the empath in place, because every act of cruelty is seen not as a reason to leave, but as a reason to love harder.
Narcissists sense this. They sense that empaths will not abandon them easily. They sense that empaths will explain away their abuse, forgive their betrayals, and even blame themselves for the chaos. And this is exactly what makes the empath such a prime target. To a narcissist, the empath is a well that never runs dry. No matter how much they take, attention, forgiveness, emotional energy, the empath keeps pouring out more. The narcissist knows this, and it keeps them circling back over and over, even after they discard or devalue the empath. It's why so many empaths find themselves caught in toxic cycles that last months, years, or even decades. The saddest part is that empaths often don't see their own value. They believe their role is to carry the pain of others, to absorb anger, to soothe wounds that were never theirs to heal. In doing so, they forget that their heart, their compassion, their forgiveness, these are treasures. The narcissist sees that treasure and exploits it, twisting the empath's kindness into a leash. What begins as love soon becomes captivity, and the empath, blinded by their own hope, doesn't realize that they've been chosen not for who they are in truth, but for what they can provide. This is why it is so important for empaths to wake up to their worth. The reason narcissists target them is not because they are weak, but because they are powerful. Their light shines so brightly that even the darkest souls want to steal it. Their love runs so deeply that even the most hollow hearts want to drink from it. But here is the crucial difference. While others want to share in that love, the narcissist only wants to consume it. To them, the empath is not a partner. It is a source of energy, admiration, and healing that they never intend to return. Once an empath understands this truth, the entire game changes. You begin to see the targeting for what it is, not a reflection of your flaws, but proof of your strength. You were chosen because you are rare. You were chosen because your compassion is unmatched. You were chosen because your forgiveness has no limit. But just because you were chosen does not mean you must stay. The very heart that makes you a target is also the heart that can free you. Once you realize that your gift is not meant to be drained, but to be cherished. The beginning of a relationship with a narcissist often feels like a dream. For an empath, it feels like destiny. From the very first moments, the narcissist knows exactly what to say, how to look at you, how to make you feel like you are the most important person in the entire world. They listen to your words with intensity. They mirror your values. They nod at your stories as if your soul was already intertwined with theirs. This is not by accident. It is by design. The narcissist has entered what is called the idealization phase, also known as love bombing. And to the empath, this sudden flood of attention feels like finally being seen, finally being understood, finally being chosen in a world that often misunderstands their depth. During this stage, the narcissist creates an illusion so powerful that even the most intuitive empath struggles to see through it. They text constantly, they flatter endlessly, they shower you with compliments that reach into your hidden insecurities. If you doubt your worth, they tell you that you are priceless. If you question your beauty, they tell you that you are perfect. If you long for a soul connection, they tell you that they have never met anyone like you. To the empath, who naturally gives so much but rarely receives the same in return, this feels intoxicating. At last, someone is not only accepting their sensitivity, but celebrating it. The empath feels chosen, adored, and deeply valued. But beneath the surface, the narcissist's affection is not genuine love. It is bait. Every sweet word, every intense gaze, every act of generosity is part of a calculated plan to pull the empath into their orbit. Narcissists know that empaths long for emotional depth, so they mimic it. They study the empath's values, hopes, and fears, then present themselves as the perfect match. It feels like a soulmate bond, but what is really happening is a performance, a carefully crafted reflection of the empath's own soul. What the empath sees is not the narcissist's truth, but their own goodness mirrored back at them. And because the reflection is so convincing, the empath falls deeper into the trap, believing they have finally found what their heart has been searching for. This is the stage where empaths often feel the most alive. They believe they have found a partner who not only understands their emotions, but matches their intensity.
Every moment feels electric. The narcissist places them on a pedestal so high, the empath begins to think, maybe this is the love I was meant for all along. And yet, what they don't realize is that the pedestal is temporary. The higher they are lifted, the further they will fall when the mask eventually slips. The danger of love bombing lies in its intensity. The human heart is not built to sustain constant fireworks, yet in the hands of a narcissist, it becomes addictive. The brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, chemicals tied to pleasure and bonding, every time the narcissist pours on the affection. Soon, the empath begins to crave the attention, the validation, the feeling of being special. And once the craving is strong enough, the narcissist begins to shift. They pull back, they withdraw the affection, they grow cold or critical. This sudden absence leaves the empath desperate to get back the warmth they once felt. And so, the cycle begins. What makes this stage so cruel is that it feels so real. The empath cannot believe that someone could pretend to love so deeply. They replay the words, the touches, the promises, and it all felt genuine. But this is the brilliance of the narcissist's mask. It does not feel fake, even when it is. They are actors on the stage of intimacy, and their performance is designed to disarm even the strongest intuition. For the empath, this stage is both intoxicating and dangerous. It feels like the love story they always dreamed of, but it is actually the opening act of a trap. The affection is not about honoring who they are, but about hooking them so deeply that leaving feels impossible later. The pedestal is not a place of safety. It is the setup for the eventual fall. And the fall always comes. This is why the idealization phase is so important to understand. It is not real love. Real love grows steadily, carefully, with trust and mutual respect. Real love does not rush to the finish line, nor does it drown you in constant attention. Real love is not fireworks that burn out as fast as they appear. It is a steady flame that warms without consuming. The empath, once they see this, can begin to protect themselves. They can recognize that when something feels too good to be true, especially with the intensity of love bombing, it often is. The narcissist's fake love is never about the empath's happiness. It is about control. It is about securing loyalty, about binding the empath to them emotionally, so that when the shift to devaluation happens, the empath will fight to get back the love
they once had. And that is the cruelest trick of all. The empath is not fighting for the narcissist's love because it was never real. They are fighting for the return of the illusion, the mask, the performance that once made them feel chosen. And this is how the trap closes. By the time the empath realizes the pedestal is shaking, they are already too invested, too bonded, too hopeful to walk away easily. The love bombing worked, the illusion worked, and the roller coaster is ready for its next drop. One of the most painful moments in any relationship with a narcissist is the sudden shift, the day when the angel you thought you knew vanishes, and in their place stands someone cold, critical, and almost unrecognizable. For the empath, this shift feels like whiplash. Just yesterday, they were cherished,
adored, even worshipped. But today, they are criticized, blamed, and treated as though they are the source of every problem. The warmth is gone, replaced by an icy distance or cutting words. And what makes it so devastating is that it happens without warning, without reason, without explanation. The empath is left confused, asking, "What changed? Did I say something wrong? Did I do something to upset them?" But the reality is, nothing changed, at least not within the empath. The change is in the narcissist, and it was always destined to come. This shift is part of the narcissist's pattern. Remember, the love they offered in the beginning was not real. It was a mask, a performance designed to secure the empath's loyalty. Once they feel that loyalty has been won, once the empath is emotionally invested and bonded, the mask begins to slip. The pedestal crumbles, the idealization ends, and what takes its place is the devaluation stage. This is when the empath is no longer treated like a treasure, but like a burden. Every word is twisted, every flaw magnified, every mistake used as evidence against them. The very qualities that were once praised, kindness, sensitivity, forgiveness, now become weaknesses in the narcissist's eyes. Suddenly the empath is too sensitive, too emotional, or never good enough. Why does this shift happen? It is not about the empath doing something wrong. It is about the narcissist's need for control. Narcissists live in constant fear of being exposed, abandoned, or overshadowed. In the beginning, they idealize the empath to secure closeness. But once that closeness feels guaranteed, the narcissist begins to feel threatened by it. The empath's light becomes too bright. Their authenticity becomes unbearable to someone who survives on masks and facades. So the narcissist strikes first, tearing the empath down before the empath can ever leave or reject them. It is a twisted form of self-protection, but in truth, it is simply cruelty disguised as survival. For the empath, this sudden shift is devastating because it creates confusion and self-doubt. They ask themselves, if I was so loved yesterday, how am I so hated today? This contradiction tears at their sense of reality. They replay conversations, searching for what they did wrong, not realizing that the answer lies not in their actions, but in the narcissist's instability. The narcissist flips because their love was never steady to begin with. It was conditional, fragile, and dependent on how much supply they were receiving. The moment the empath's light reminds them of their own darkness, the moment their insecurities resurface, the shift begins. And this is where the true manipulation lies. By alternating between angel and enemy, the narcissist creates a cycle of hope and despair. The empath clings to the memory of the angel, believing that if they just try harder, the loving version will return. They think, maybe if I forgive, maybe if I give more, maybe if I change myself, they'll love me again. But what they don't realize is that the angel was never real. It was only a mask. The enemy is closer to the truth, but even that is not the full picture. Both are roles played to control the empath, to keep them bound to the cycle. The sudden shift is not about the empath's failures. It is about the narcissist's need for dominance. Love bombing was the bait, and devaluation is the hook.
The empath, once secure in the relationship, now finds themselves working harder and harder to regain the love that once flowed so easily. This desperation is exactly what the narcissist wants, because it keeps the empath chasing, giving, and sacrificing, while the narcissist grows stronger from their suffering. The tragedy of this stage is how deeply it wounds the empath's spirit. To go from angel to enemy in the eyes of someone you love is a betrayal that cuts to the core. It makes you question your worth, your reality, even your sanity. But the truth must be remembered. The shift was never about who you are, but about who they are. Their love is not steady because their soul is not steady. Their hate is not earned because their heart has never been whole. The shift is not your fault, it is their cycle. And once you see it for what it is, you begin to realize something powerful. You don't have to stay on the ride. You don't have to beg for the angel to come back or endure the enemy's cruelty. You can step off the roller coaster. You can reclaim your peace, because the shift, as painful as it is also the greatest clue. It reveals the truth. The angel was an illusion and the enemy is a mask. But your heart, your light, your truth, that was real all along. And that truth is something no narcissist can ever take away. The love-hate cycle of a narcissist is not random and it is not accidental. It is a deliberate tactic, carefully designed to keep you off balance. To the empath, it feels confusing, chaotic, and unpredictable. But to the narcissist, it is strategy. Every sudden shift from warmth to coldness, every swing from affection to cruelty, serves one purpose: control. Narcissists know that stability breeds confidence, and confidence gives people the strength to set boundaries and walk away. But instability creates dependency. When you never know which version of them you'll get, you start adjusting yourself to survive the chaos. You tiptoe around their moods. You silence your needs. You become more focused on keeping the peace than on protecting your own heart. And in doing so, you hand over control without even realizing it.
For the narcissist, control is everything. It is not about love, connection, or partnership. It is about power. They want to dominate the emotional atmosphere, to be the one who decides when you feel cherished and when you feel crushed. The unpredictability is what makes you cling tighter. When they are cruel, you hold on, hoping for the return of kindness. When they are kind, you breathe a sigh of relief, grateful the storm is past. This back and forth keeps you hooked, not because you are weak, but because your brain is being trained like it's on a slot machine. You never know when the next reward will come, and that very uncertainty makes the occasional kindness feel more powerful than it really is. This manipulation works especially well on empaths because of their nature. Empaths crave harmony, peace, and understanding. When the narcissist pulls away or lashes out, the empath naturally wants to fix it. They bend, they sacrifice, they work harder, thinking if they just love enough, the balance will return. But the balance is never meant to return. The cycle was created to keep them spinning, searching for a stability that will never exist. The narcissist doesn't want the empath calm. They want the empath dependent. It is important to understand that this control isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's silence that wounds the most. The narcissist might withdraw affection, give cold stares, or punish with long stretches of indifference. This silent treatment is not forgetfulness,
It is control. It tells the empath, you will only feel loved when I decide. You will only feel safe when I allow it. Other times, control comes through sudden explosions, anger, criticism, or shaming that leave the empath scrambling to repair the damage. The form may change, but the goal remains the same. Keep the empath unsteady, keep them guessing, keep them chasing. The cruel brilliance of this tactic is that it turns the empath's own heart against them. Empaths who once trusted their intuition now second-guess it. Empaths who once valued their compassion now question if it is weakness. Empaths who once felt steady and strong now live on edge, waiting for the next shift. This erosion of self is not an accident. It is the outcome of control. The narcissist weakens their victim not through one grand act of cruelty, but through 1,000 small manipulations that wear away its confidence and clarity. And yet, once the pattern is recognized, the spell begins to break. Because the truth is, unpredictability loses its power once you understand it is intentional. The moment you see the love-hate cycle as a tactic and not a mystery, you stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start seeing, "This is how they control me." That shift in awareness is the first step toward freedom, because control only works when you believe you caused it. Once you realize you did not, the grip begins to loosen. The empath's greatest danger in this cycle is also their greatest strength, their capacity to love deeply. Narcissists twist this love into a leash, but once the empath learns to direct that same love inward, the leash breaks. The moment the empath values their own peace more than a narcissist's approval, the manipulation loses its power. The cycle is exposed for what it is, not love, not fate, not destiny, but control dressed up as passion. And when an empath finally steps out of the cycle, they see clearly what they could not before. Love should never feel like control. Love should never keep you guessing whether you are safe today or discarded tomorrow. Love should not demand your confusion as proof of your devotion. The cycle is not love at all. It is bondage. And once you see it, you can choose to never ride that roller coaster again. Narcissists live in a world built on masks, illusions, and fragile egos. Their entire sense of self is constructed like a house of cards, carefully arranged to appear strong, confident, and untouchable. But when an empath enters their life, something happens that shakes the very foundation of this illusion. The empath's light, made up of authenticity, kindness, compassion, and an inner strength that comes from genuine love, becomes like a mirror reflecting back what the narcissist tries hardest to hide – their emptiness. And this is why what first attracted them to you eventually begins to eat away at them, turning love into resentment, admiration into jealousy, and closeness into hostility. At first, your light feels like warmth to them. Narcissists are drawn to the qualities they secretly wish they had. They see in you the emotional depth they lack, the patience they can't sustain, the selfless love they don't know how to give. In your presence, they feel temporarily whole. That is why the beginning often feels magical, because they are basking in your glow. But light does more than warm, it also reveals. And the more they are around you, the more their shadows are exposed. They cannot hide from themselves when your kindness shows what true care looks like, when your patience highlights their impulsive rage, or when your empathy reveals just how shallow their manufactured emotions really are. This is where the shift begins. Instead of appreciating your light, they begin to resent it. To the narcissist, your compassion feels like a threat because it shows them the truth. They are incapable of giving what you give so naturally. Your patience makes their explosive temper stand out. Your loyalty exposes their betrayal. Your honesty makes their lies harder to maintain. Every moment they are with you becomes a battle inside their own mind. Do they cling to your light, or do they try to destroy it so they don't have to face their own darkness? More often than not, they choose destruction. This is why narcissists lash out at empaths with criticism, accusations, and blame. It isn't because you did something wrong, it's because your very presence unsettles their carefully guarded self-image. Imagine standing in a dark room where no one can see the cracks in the walls. For years, the narcissist lives in that room, convincing themselves they are flawless. Then suddenly, you walk in carrying a lantern. Your light doesn't harm the room, it simply shows what's already there. But instead of thanking you for the clarity, they rage at you for daring to expose it. That's what it feels like for them when your inner goodness reveals their inner brokenness. Empaths often wonder, why does my kindness make them angry? Why does my love make them cruel? The painful truth is that love, when given freely, highlights just how incapable the narcissist is of returning it. It stirs up their deepest insecurity, that without control, without manipulation, without lies, they have nothing real to offer. And when an empath sees through the mask, even if silently, the narcissist feels the sting of exposure. That sting turns quickly into resentment. Another reason your light triggers their darkness is because of something deeper. Empaths carry resilience. Even when broken, even when manipulated, there is a strength inside an empath that refuses to die. You might cry, you might bend, you might even lose yourself for a time, but your core doesn't shatter. And narcissists know this. They know that no matter how hard they try to break you, your spirit keeps standing back up. This resilience enrages them because it reminds them of their own fragility. They cannot understand how someone who feels so deeply can survive storms that would destroy them. So instead of respecting your strength, they turn it into a competition, trying harder to crush the very thing they can never possess. The irony is painful. What they loved about you, the empathy, the kindness, the patience, the loyalty, is exactly what becomes the reason they try to tear you down. Your love was never the problem. Your authenticity was never too much. Your compassion was never misplaced. The real problem is that your light exposes their darkness, and instead of facing it, they try to extinguish you. For empaths, understanding this truth is powerful. It allows you to stop blaming yourself for their shifts. You stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and instead realize this is how your light showed them who they are, and they couldn't handle it. You begin to see that their rejection is not a reflection of your worth, but of their inability to face themselves. The love-hate cycle becomes clearer. They love you when your light fills their emptiness, but they hate you when that same light makes them confront their shadow. And here's where the choice lies. An empath must remember that their light is not a burden, it is a gift. But not everyone is ready to receive it. Narcissists often mistake it for a weapon, when in truth, it's a healing force. The tragedy is instead of letting it heal them, they turn against the very person who could have helped them grow.
One of the hardest truths for empaths to accept is that the sudden wave of hatred coming from a narcissist has very little to do with who they are. In reality, it's all about the narcissist's own inner battles. Narcissists live with a deep sense of self-loathing that they cannot face. So, instead of confronting it, they project it onto the people closest to them. Most often the empath who reflects back love, patience, and understanding. When the narcissist feels insecure, inferior, or unworthy, they cannot tolerate those feelings within themselves. So they offload them by making the empath feel like the problem. The criticisms, the cold looks, the cruel words, all of it is a mirror of the narcissist's own hidden shame and rage. For the empath, this projection can feel crushing because it makes them question their worth and replay situations in their mind, wondering what they did wrong. But the truth is, nothing was wrong with the empath. The hate the narcissist spews is not about the empath's failures, but about the narcissist's inability to face their own. Understanding projection frees the empath from internalizing that poison, showing them that the darkness being thrown at them was never truly theirs to carry. Gaslighting is one of the most destructive weapons narcissists use, and it's especially devastating for empaths because of how deeply they trust, love, and seek to understand others. For an empath, relationships are built on honesty, care, and genuine connection. They naturally assume the other person has the same intention. This is why, when a narcissist enters their life, the empath doesn't immediately recognize the manipulation for what it is. Instead, they start to question themselves because narcissists are masters of sending mixed signals, praising you one day, tearing you down the next, showing affection in one moment, then withholding it without explanation. This constant push and pull creates a fog of confusion that eats away at the empath's sense of reality. Imagine being told you are the most amazing person one night, and then waking up the next morning to accusations that you're selfish, ungrateful, or even too sensitive. For someone with a big heart, this doesn't make sense. The natural instinct of an empath is to assume there must be a reason for the sudden shift, so they start to search for answers within themselves. What did I do wrong? Did I say something that hurt them? Did I miss a signal? This inward searching is exactly what the narcissist wants. Because once an empath starts doubting their own perceptions, their own memory, and even their own worth, the narcissist gains control. The empath becomes dependent on the narcissist for clarity, validation, and reassurance. Ironically, the very things the narcissist is systematically destroying. The mixed signals are not random mood swings, they are deliberate tactic. Narcissists thrive on destabilizing their target because a person who is off balance is easier to control. If an empath never knows what version of the narcissist they are going to get, they will spend their energy trying to keep the peace, trying to anticipate the next reaction, trying to fix what isn't broken. The narcissist uses this instability like a leash, tugging at the empath's emotions and keeping them walking in circles. It becomes a cycle of confusion where the empath keeps giving more and more love, hoping to win back the good side of the narcissist, the side that showered them with affection in the beginning. But what the empath doesn't realize is that this cycle was designed from the start. Gaslighting doesn't only happen in the form of mixed signals. It also appears in subtle conversations that twist reality. For example, if an empath calls out the narcissist for a cruel remark, the narcissist may deny ever saying it. If the empath recalls an event where they felt disrespected, the narcissist might claim, "That never happened," or worse, "You're imagining things." Over time, this erodes the empath's trust in their own memory. They begin to second-guess even the clearest moments, wondering if perhaps they really are exaggerating or misremembering. This slow breakdown of self-trust is what makes gaslighting one of the most dangerous games. It doesn't just manipulate the empath's emotions, it attacks their very perception of reality. Another layer of the confusion game is selective kindness. A narcissist may suddenly praise the empath for something small, like the way they made dinner or handled a situation, right after a period of intense criticism. This breadcrumb of affection throws the empath off, because just as they were beginning to believe the narcissist truly despised them, they are handed a moment of validation. It feels like relief, almost like sunshine breaking through clouds. But this is not real healing, it's part of the manipulation. The unpredictability of kindness keeps the empath hooked, because they cling to the hope that the loving version of the narcissist is the real one. They think that if they just love harder, if they just avoid the wrong words, if they just give a little more, they can bring that version back permanently. And that's the trap. The cycle of praise and insult works like emotional conditioning. It mirrors the principles of intermittent reinforcement, the same psychology used in gambling addiction. If a slot machine gave out rewards every single time, players would eventually get bored. But if it gives out rewards unpredictably, players become addicted, chasing the high of the next win. In the same way, narcissists withhold affection and then drop it unpredictably, so the empath becomes addicted to chasing the moments of approval. This is why so many empaths stay longer in toxic relationships than they should, not because they are weak, but because their compassionate nature is being systematically rewired against them. The emotional addiction loop is one of the most painful traps an empath can fall into when dealing with a narcissist. It is not always about the obvious manipulation, the cruelty, or even the sudden shifts between love and hate. It is about the deeper psychological bond that begins to form when you begin to crave the version of the narcissist that once made you feel alive, cherished, and seen. The cycle begins with the highs, the love bombing, the intense connection, the feeling that you have finally found someone who understands you in ways others never could. But just as quickly as it starts, the warmth disappears. Suddenly, the very person who once held you like treasure now looks at you with cold eyes, sharp words, and endless criticism. And this is where the addiction takes root. The empath is left clinging not to the person standing in front of them, but to the memory of the person they once knew. You wait, hoping the sweet version will return, the one who made you feel alive, the one who promised love. Every small breadcrumb of kindness, every rare moment of affection feels like a hit of relief, convincing you to hold on just a little longer. But those glimpses are carefully timed. Narcissists know when to dangle the good version of themselves like a reward, just enough to keep you tied to the relationship. The more you chase those fleeting highs, the more entangled you become in the lows. It's a loop of hope, disappointment, and desperation, and it works because empaths have a natural tendency to see the good in others. You convince yourself that the good version is the real one.
You realize you are stronger than their insults, brighter than their shadow, and more valuable than their empty promises. You no longer wait for the good version of them to reappear, because you see now that it was just a mask, never real. You stop searching for closure in their words because you understand closure is something you give yourself, not something they will ever hand you. This is why awareness is power. It returns you to yourself. It reminds you that you are not fragile, you are not broken, you are not to blame. You are someone who loved deeply, gave selflessly, and believed earnestly. And those qualities are not weaknesses, they are strengths. But now, with awareness, you know those strengths deserve to be protected, not exploited. You stop pouring your compassion into a bottomless pit, and instead you redirect it toward yourself. You begin to set boundaries, not as walls to keep people out, but as doors to let only the right ones in. You no longer confuse intensity with love, drama with passion, or chaos with connection. Instead, you seek peace, stability, and authenticity, because now you recognize the difference.
Breaking the cycle is not about changing the narcissist, because that is a battle you will never win. It is about changing your response, stepping out of the game, and reclaiming the energy that was stolen from you. It is about understanding that their behavior is a reflection of their wounds, their emptiness, their refusal to face themselves, not a reflection of your worth. And once you see this clearly, you no longer carry their baggage on your back. You no longer take responsibility for their unhappiness, their anger, or their cruelty. You give it back to them where it belongs. And in doing so, you free yourself. Awareness is power because it is the beginning of healing. Healing doesn't happen in one day, but the moment you become aware, you have already started the journey. You may still feel the pull of the cycle, the temptation to return, the ache of missing the person you thought they were. But now you know better. You can remind yourself that the person you miss was a mask, a performance, a carefully crafted illusion designed to bind you. And little by little, that realization weakens the hold. With time, you regain clarity, you rebuild trust in yourself, and you begin to rediscover the parts of you that were silenced, dimmed, or doubted. You learn to listen to your intuition again, that inner voice that always knew the truth but was drowned out by manipulation. And when you do, you realize that the power was never in their hands. It was always in yours. Breaking the cycle means no longer letting their chaos define your peace, no longer letting their lies shape your reality, and no longer letting their instability control your emotional world. It means rising above with eyes wide open and heart fully aware, ready to choose differently this time. Because now you know, awareness is not just knowledge, it is liberation, it is strength, and it is the key to reclaiming your life. The empath's shield is not something external, it is something born from within. For so long, empaths have believed that their love, patience, and forgiveness would eventually heal the narcissist. That if they just gave a little more, tolerated a little longer, or sacrificed a little deeper, things would change. But this belief is the very fuel that keeps the cycle alive. The truth is, the narcissist thrives on chaos because it keeps the empath doubting themselves, always reaching for a version of peace that never arrives. Choosing self-love becomes the ultimate act of rebellion against this manipulation. It is not selfish, it is survival. When an empath learns to value their own light more than the illusion of fixing someone else, they step outside of the push and pull game. Boundaries become the shield that no amount of guilt-tripping or gaslighting can pierce. And in that shield lies freedom, clarity, and peace. The narcissist loses their power the moment the empath chooses themselves, because control cannot exist where self-respect lives. This is the path forward, not to keep enduring the storm, but to rise above it, grounded in self-worth, guided by love that begins within.